I'm Danny Dyer. Playing hard men and acting tough has been my bread and butter. But now I've got a new role. I'm going to be tracking down some of the most feared men in the country on both sides of the law. I'm going to find out what makes them tick, how they got their fearsome reputations, and why they're considered some of Britain's deadliest men. He's been a football hooligan, a boxer with over 100 knockouts to his name, and had his own security company which ran the door of over 200 clubs in Edinburgh. At just 17, he was Britain's youngest criminal mastermind, a teenage godfather who ran the streets of the Scottish capital, the original baby-faced assassin.
I was always a frontliner. I'm a born leader.
I'm meeting Bradley Welsh, a man who, before he was barely out of his teens, was feared in the ring, on the terraces and on the streets. And whose young life of crime and violence ultimately led him to jail. Now, I've met him before when we made a film about football hooligans a couple of years ago, so I know all about his fearsome reputation. Last time it was all about being a hooligan. Fucking get up there.
I was 14 and I'd been arrested up in Dundee, arrested at Ibrox. I'd been like 7 arrests. I was only 14 for violence at football.
But that was just a small part of his complex character. Of all the blokes I've met doing the football factories, he was the one that stuck in my mind. He's 38 years old and runs a gym in a tough part of the city. He's one of Edinburgh's faces, thanks to his notorious past.
Brad's a force of nature. I mean, he's one of these guys that you'll maybe meet 2 or 3 of them in a lifetime.
Scary, man. Just scary.
Good to see you, Brad. It's been a while, mate. Oh, cheers. It must take something special to be a big player in the criminal underworld before you're old enough to buy a drink. So I've come back to get the rest of his story. So obviously, look, it's going to be nice to spend a bit of time with you properly, you know.
Come up here and we'll show a bit of Edinburgh. It's a beautiful city, as you can see.
Yeah.
We'll maybe take you a wee bit of the sort of part of the cities that people don't see, yeah?
Yeah.
The underbelly a wee bit, yeah?
Yeah.
Have a look here.
Already I'm remembering that Bradley's brain works at 100 miles an hour and he wants to cram in as much as possible. He's eager to tell me everything about the city, but will he be as keen to talk about himself? He's going to give me a tour of Edinburgh, but what I really want is a tour of inside Bradley's head. Now, I just don't know how far he's going to let go. I just get a sense that he's holding back a little bit, you know, which doesn't surprise me, really. I get the feeling that Bradley isn't proud of his criminal past, and now that he's a reformed character, he doesn't want to be seen bragging about his exploits. So what, if anything, am I going to find out? In 1970, Bradley Welsh was born to working-class parents in a deprived area to the southwest of Edinburgh. He's taken me back there to see the place where he grew up.
So this is Morden, yeah? This is where I was, I was born, yeah? This is still, you know, quite a bad area for drugs and stuff like that. A very cheap accommodation. And I was born on the 8th floor there, yeah?
Oh, so that was your building, was it?
Yeah.
After Bradley's father was thrown out by his mum, she brought up Bradley and his elder brother. It was her fighting spirit that would inspire him all his life.
My family were everything to me. And again,
yeah, you're close to your family, aren't you?
I'm really close to my mum and my brother and stuff, yeah. My nephews are really close to that family. That's what's got me through all the adverse points in my life, yeah. It's having that closeness of family.
She took him to boxing when he was 7. Boxing ran in her blood. Her grandfather was a prize fighter.
At the age of 11, 12 years old, I had maybe 250 fights. So I was boxing from the age of 7 years old, which I started to do as somebody to channel my sort of energies into. It was my mother and my brother that got me to do that, because I was a bit of a wayward child, shall we say, yeah.
It was his first boxing match, and I can remember it like it was yesterday. It was only 2 rounds, we were only 8.5 or 9 years old, and the referee stopped Bradley. He was like slowing him down. He was going so fast that he was turning around full circle, and he was going so fast. And that sums Bradley up.
He excelled in the ring, small, wiry, and with explosive power. He had a never-say-die attitude. He won bout after bout and established himself as a genuine contender. But it was his passion for violence outside the ring that would define Bradley Welsh.
I was winning Scottish titles and stuff. But the same day I was winning Scottish titles, I was running away from the competition, jumping on buses from Meadowbank up to the football and then fighting on the streets.
Coming up, Bradley tells me how friendly the people of Edinburgh are.
If you can't fight, you're going to survive up here. Simple as that.
He graduates to become an underworld godfather.
I would rather have a gun in my hand than a kind word, yeah?
And I learn about how he dealt with rival hooligans.
Everybody tried. Nobody ever made it over here. People made it over that way.
I'm up in Edinburgh with Bradley Welsh, a football hooligan leader at 12, a champion boxer by 15, and a gangster before he could vote. Back in the day, the very mention of his name struck fear into people. From what he told me so far, I realised that first and foremost, he's a product of his hometown.
All the hard men come from here. All the hard kids come from here. All the ladies are good workers, good grafters, good earners, and they can all fight. They can all fight with their hands, yeah? There's something in the genetics up here, yeah? Because if you can't fight, you didn't survive up here. Simple as that.
Just like Bradley, there's a violent side to Edinburgh that the guidebooks definitely don't tell you about.
The underbelly's always been with Edinburgh, this Jekyll and Hyde side to the city. And then, you know, you see it's very evident, like the old town and the new town, and even within these areas, you know, rich and poor live together.
What that means is that the other parts of the city where people actually live are almost kind of deemed not to exist.
But whether rich or poor, one thing in Edinburgh did bring everyone together. Well, half of Edinburgh anyway. Easter Road is home to one of the city's 2 football clubs, Hibernian FC. Bradley wasn't a football fan, boxing was his passion, but when he was taken to see Hibs play, he was shocked by what he saw happening to his city.
Now, every time when you came to Easter Road, yeah, Rangers and Celtic predominantly, because they were the big force in Scotland, would go to every city in Scotland and they would piss all over the streets. And they would take over me. As a young boy coming down here at 12 years old, I was fearless. I was a boxer, I had about 200 fights, mate. And then coming here, I used to see Hibs supporters hide their scarves. And I can remember going on the train road and somebody saying, well, you better hide your scarf. And to me, that was like, what? You know, because this is my city, this is the castle that I live with. This is, you know, this is where we're fit. I was never brought up to hide anything.
It was 1982, and football hooliganism in Scotland was rife. Bradley's elder brother was part of Hibernian's main hooligan firm, the Capital City Service.
What the Hibs casuals became notorious for was how tightly knit they were and how closely bonded. And I suppose for any criminal organisation, because that's what they basically were. I mean, they were breaking the law all the time, like the mafia, you know, how tightly bonded they are. And that was what's quite unique about Hibs.
Determined to play his part in defending his city from the invading hordes, Bradley and his friends formed their own infamous group, the Blackleys Baby Crew.
I'm a born leader. That's what I've always done. I've never listened to other people. I've always took things, maybe partly because of my confidence. So I sort of formed my own wee mob, and how I done that was I collated them together, got membership cards, and sort of organised them along a battalion line, yeah? And there was literally a couple hundred boys at that time. But by no means was I like just the main guy. That was the beauty about this Hibs thing. There was 50, 60 main guys. That's what our strength was. We made Easter Road a fortress.
Now, away firms coming to Hibs would have to run the gauntlet of one of Scotland's best young boxers and his hooligan crew.
This would be our main focal point, for people to congregate. This is the entrance coming into the Hibs away end, yeah? And in the 80s, back when the old Bill police didn't have a clue, yeah? We'd get away with murder here, as you can imagine. Many, many incidents here, hundreds, too many to remember. When I woke up somewhere like this, it's like a nostalgic trip, yeah? Yeah, even though it has been 15 to 20 years, yeah? Yeah. Hello. I'm standing on the Bridge of Doom. What Bridge of Doom? Just because nobody ever made it over here, eh? Nobody. And all the years we went to football, nobody ever made it over here. Everybody tried, nobody ever made it over here. People made it over that way.
Despite saying he's not proud of his hooligan past, I get the feeling that Bradley feels a certain nostalgia for his days running the firm and defending his manor and the Hibs fans. But when it was all kicking off back in the 80s, one person he most certainly didn't want to know about what was going on was his mum. Incredibly, he managed to keep his hooligan life a secret from her and his stepdad. Like any teenager, he got into trouble with them, but they had no idea what he was really up to.
Any, hint of trouble or even, school reports, whatever, or just acting up, he was kept in. He was stopped for going to his training, and the usual things that parents would
kept him in the pub till 5 o'clock on a Saturday.
Kept him when we were both working.
So he couldn't go to the football.
But when England came to Scotland for an international match, Bradley snuck out and went to the game without his mum knowing. And what happened made him front page news.
You gotta fight for your right to party!
And there's a picture, and it's got England at the bottom, Scotland at the top, and it's got a no man's land, and I'm standing in no man's land with a big stick, and there's a policeman grabbing me like this.
Scotland v England was a major battle, and he was a boy in a man's world who could more than hold his own.
At the age of 45, I wasn't a great fighter. I was 8.5 stone. 15-stone man's going to beat me. Anyway, but I could punch and I could knock people out. So I was always going to football and chinning people.
There's a few times I've seen big guys be like, who are you? And before you'd even got their hands out of the pocket, they were on the deck, And he was a young boy at the time,
He may have been at the centre of an international hooligan incident, but he still had to be home for his tea.
I got on the train at half-time, got back to Edinburgh, clearly the game's just finishing, and I've walked into my mum and stepdad's pub as if, I've just been up to them, thinking I beat them. That morning, Sunday, they worked in they owned a pub, so I'd be in the pub till late at night, 12 o'clock. Sunday Mail papers came round, and on the papers, what's on the front page? Me standing on the front page, like that, hooligans and stuff like that. I had to cut the paper, take the photos of it, and leave the papers in the pub. So my mum wouldn't know.
But as Bradley explained to me, being a hooligan was not just about fighting. You had to look the part too. The Bother Boys skinhead image of the 60s and 70s was old hat. Bradley and his pals needed to get hold of designer clothing, which was the new uniform of the hooligan. But the kind of labels you had to be seen in didn't come cheap.
And obviously fashion was a huge thing for a lot of the protagonists that were involved at the time. And being a young kid, you couldn't often afford these things, especially coming from the kind of broken home that I did and stuff. My mum provided everything for us. She was unaware about having the need to have a £100 Armani jumper. So we'd mob and we'd rob,
Mobbing and a robbing does pretty much what it says on the tin.
We started doing organised smash and grabs. So you had Jenner's department store in Edinburgh, and it was probably it had sold a lot of sort of nice gear at the time that they would have jumpers at £90. But you couldn't afford them. So how do you get them? You go and steal them. But you don't go in the shop and steal them. You wait till night time, there's nobody in the shop, and you and your pals, 20 of you, organise the streets, and then you go and you smash the window and you climb in the store and you help yourself. And Jenner's got done maybe about 20 times in about a year.
Dressed up to the nines, the Hybe's crew began to travel Scotland. They were young, cocky and fearless.
It was excitement, it was enjoyment. going away with your pals, walking through the centre of Glasgow, singing to the Addams Family. Do you remember the Addams Family? Singing the Addams Family, the Hypebeast Family, da-da-da-da, ooh, ooh, da-da. And 10,000 shoppers are going, who are these people coming out of our sacred city?
It was clear that running the Crew was no longer just about football. Thanks to his firm, he was making money by selling the expensive designer clothing on the black market. But the profits from their mobbing and a robbing were relatively small time. Bradley was aware of the fear that the Hypebeast crew had instilled in Edinburgh.
Basically, I mean, I always remember the club scene is just getting absolutely fucking on pills and sort of dancing our heads off.
In the late 80s, house music completely revolutionised the Edinburgh club scene.
There was only maybe a nucleus of 800 people in Edinburgh that actually knew about the dance scene. Everybody else was going to your Buster Browns and that and dancing with their handbags, with big high heel shaggy shoes on, yeah?
The old cliche about if you remember the 90s, you weren't there kind of thing. You know? So I think it was a wee bit like that, like the late 80s, early 90s was a bit like that in Edinburgh as elsewhere.
With the music came the drugs. Soon, everyone was loved up on ease.
When the whole ecstasy thing hit, people who wouldn't speak to each other started speaking to each other. It's a cliche, but it was all over the country. That was the way. And people who used to like fight each other would be happy to stand in the same club.
But Bradley wasn't there for the music or the drugs. He was there for the money.
I know about as much about his music as I do as I've got in that little pinky. I was not interested in music. I was interested in the money aspect of it.
Many club owners at the time were scared of the Hibs casuals causing trouble on their premises. So Bradley saw this as an opportunity to capitalise on his position and notoriety. He went into business with a company called Westland Security, who provided the muscle on the doors of some of Edinburgh's biggest clubs. But Westland wanted more contracts, and Bradley's role was to go and get them.
Edinburgh was known for, you know, its casual thing, and I just saw the opportunity with that there, yeah? You know, all these bar and club owners that were sort of, you know, hiring security to try and keep these supposed troublemakers out. So I went out there and overnight, maybe got them 3/4 of the doors in Edinburgh.
Before long, the doors of most of Edinburgh's clubs were controlled by Bradley and Westland.
Because I was in the overdrive now. I was 17 years old, just turning 18, and I was going, I thought I was Don Corleone. I thought that this is it, I can do whatever I want. I was fearless, I was being predacious with people, overpowering people, and I was a kick, you know what I mean?
Bradley hadn't just been running the doors, he also had a vested interest in the success of certain venues. He was putting on his own nights at some of the clubs and coining it in. He wanted his nights to do well and competing nights to foul, and he was in a position to make it happen.
So if this place was going to come up in competition, my objective was to fuck the place, was to annihilate it and get it closed down. This is 1988, yeah, and there's 3 clubs in competition. Then if there are 2 clubs or 3 clubs are not there, then you've got all the prize.
So running the door, I mean, being on the door anyway at 17, did anyone try and take the piss, do you know what I mean? Because they just thought you was fucking...
Of course they did.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
it was like, out the way, son.
Yeah.
He'd ended up running the doors of hundreds of clubs across the city. I find it astonishing that at the age of 17, he was a major kingpin in Edinburgh's shady underworld.
Brad did have a reputation in and around town. Sometimes I think with any reputation it kind of blows itself out of all proportion depending on who's telling the story and what the audience is. But for sure Brad could handle himself, could take care of himself, and you know, at points where it was necessary, I'm sure he did, you know, and I'm sure he looked out for our club interest and his own, you know. So
Bradley was starting to use more and more extreme measures to muscle his way into business. He was even rumoured to be using guns.
Well, I'd done that for the end of one of them, for a gun basically, and a word, yeah? But I would know something, I would rather have a gun in my hand than a kind word, yeah? So, and it was wrong what I'd done, but I just basically took the competition out of the game, yeah? I was more psychological than I was ever with violence, because, you know, the fear of something is always worse than the actual event itself, yeah? And what I'd done was I was very good at climbing inside people's heads and taking control of them and making them do what I wanted them to do.
In the space of 10 years, he'd gone from boxer to football casual to club godfather. But being such a prominent figure in the city, It wasn't long before the old Bill started to take an interest in Bradley's clubland activities. They suspected Bradley had been using firearms to back up his threats. In response, they mounted a massive police operation to take down the teenage godfather.
With the police trying to put together 6 months surveillance, and my house was bugged, they were bugging my telephone calls.
The police were closing in on Scotland's youngest gangster, and another chapter in his whirlwind life was about to begin. Prison.
The police, in their infinite wisdom, and correctly so, decided to take me up and drop me right to prison.
Coming up, I learn about his life behind bars.
There was about 200 Glaswegians hanging out their window, shaking their bars and stuff, banging and thinking, Brad Welsh, you're getting it in the morning, we'll see you, you're getting stabbed.
And Bradley makes a name for himself in New York.
Next one I hear, give me your fucking money, man, give me your money. I was like, mate, I says, here, I've got money here, bash, bash, sparkled 2 of them.
I've come north of the border to Scotland's capital to meet Bradley Welsh. He's revealed to me how he had risen to a position of godfather-like prominence by crushing rival clubs and security firms through threats and intimidation. By 17, his CV also included being the leader of a 200-strong football firm, orchestrator of massive shop robberies, both home and abroad, and hundreds of boxing bouts, the majority of which he won. But as I was going to discover, the party was about to come to an end. The police had been tracking Bradley for 6 months and had even bugged his telephone. His and his mum's world was about to come crashing down.
I can remember it like it was yesterday. You were at your work. I was just finishing work in the Haymarket bar, and a friend came to say that Bradley had been arrested that day, early that day, 11 or 12, I'm not quite sure what time it was. And that was the beginning of the whole nightmare.
Unbeknown to his family, Bradley was in serious trouble.
The biggest shock in my life when I was at home on my own. It was about a week after he had been arrested, and we still knew nothing at this time. And a knock at the door, and I was in the house myself, and there was 4 big 6-footers in suits with a warrant to search the house. And I'm probably what they call naive or whatever, let them in and let them search. At that time I didn't know they were actually searching for, unbelievably, a gun. God almighty, unbelievable, so frightening.
A case was brought against Bradley at Edinburgh High Court.
Even though there was 3 main charges, they consisted of about 70 sub-charges. I can remember getting it, and nobody had seen the indictment when it came. It came through my cell door, and it broke a hole in the floor, the size of it, yeah? I took it to my lawyer, and I looked it over, and he just turned the first page, turned the second page, kept turning the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th page, and he just said, I said, how's it looking? He went, you're fucked.
The charges were very serious. They included extortion and demanding £5,000 at gunpoint. But he was cleared on both of these counts. His family expected him to be home later that evening.
Alan stood waiting to hear the sentence, and he says to the lawyers, Bradley will be coming home tonight to the QC. And the QC replied to Alan and said, Alan, it's not over yet. It's brilliant news, it's a good result, but he's still got to, got to go back in here. So, and Alan said, no, I'll never forget his words. He says, Bradley will be having a steak pie at the All Night Bakers tonight, along with us.
But it wasn't to be. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison for possession of ammunition and menaces against an estate agent. The king of the club scene would spend his 21st birthday behind bars.
It was total devastation. I remember the first night we both went home for the court, and you went into his bedroom, and you know, it was like a death in the family. Hey, remember you saying that when you walked into his room, and the room was unusually clean and tidy, and that was it for nearly 4 years.
Bradley's new accommodation was full of inmates from rival firms who knew him from his hooligan days. They had old scores to settle, and he received a warm Glaswegian welcome.
And as I get there, I remember walking over the yard here to go to the Edinburgh side, and the next minute it was about 200 Glaswegians hanging out their window, shaking their bars and stuff, banging and telling me, Brad Welsh, you're getting it in the morning, we'll see you, you're getting stabbed, you're getting this. And again, it just seems all my life, my name and the reputation that's been following me about.
The threats weren't empty. Bradley was forced to fight for survival and was punished by the wardens.
I had certain problems I had to deal with from a violent side, yeah, which resulted in me being and being put in a place called the Dyer, which is solitary confinement. And a couple of incidents that happened led to me being restrained in a straitjacket.
It must have been tough for Bradley when he went inside. This was a bloke who had been in control of everything he'd done in his life up till now, whether it was in the ring or on the streets. And now he'd hit rock bottom, lying on the floor of a prison cell in a straitjacket. Separated from his friends and family, he'd never felt more alone. Then suddenly, the simplest of things began to pick him up.
I was lying in a prison cell in the middle of nowhere, God-forsaken, forgotten, lying thinking, what's happening? In a straitjacket, can't move, and this sack of mail came into the cell because I had to deliver it to me, and they opened it up and it all fell on the floor.
Within Bradley's mail was a series of postcards from Hibs casuals sent to him whilst on a day out in London to meet the infamous Millwall.
My brother and all his friends and stuff, and all my ex-friends were there as well. They took about 200 boys down to Millwall, as well documented, and sort of Millwall at that time were perceived as the #1 numero uno of the football hooligan element. And the young Hibs mob, vibrant and boisterous as they were, went down and sort of caned them, shall we call it.
As the lads travelled the length of the country, they'd sent postcards from every place they'd stopped along the way.
And here I am lying on the floor, trying to turn the postcards over to read them. I had tears streaming down my eyes. The emotion that I felt at that time was unbelievable. It was overwhelming, to tell you the truth. It sort of made me think and reflect that, you know, if I had just stayed on that path and just been a normal football hooligan, then things would have been okay. But here I was looking at maybe potentially 15 years in prison.
Great fighters always get back up. Bradley was about to do the same.
We used to say, you're knocked down, you'll never be knocked out, you know, you'll come up again. Because you've got to, you know, stand up and
just get on.
And so it was to be Bradley's first passion, boxing, that would get him back on his feet. All the time that he was involved in the club scene, Bradley had kept up his boxing, and he was not just any old contender. As Scottish Eastern District champ, he was on the verge of representing Britain at the 1992 Olympic Games in Barcelona.
He was actually on the Olympic select team, and instead of going there, he was locked up. Couldn't believe it.
Bradley never did fight for Britain at the Olympics. He was too busy fighting for himself. But amongst his many enemies on the inside, there was an unexpected friendly face who would help him turn a corner. Prison warden Ian Duff had represented Scotland at amateur boxing level and knew Bradley.
After a short discussion, he made it perfectly clear that he really wanted to progress as soon as he could, and indeed he was wondering if there was any possibility of training and what training he could do when he was here.
With the backing of Ian Duff and the prison services, Bradley started training. Boxing was about to change Bradley's life again.
I think it was his first experience of prison, and indeed it was a great shock to him, especially when he was so young and had, you know, so much to look forward to, and indeed a very talented boxer. So therefore, you know, I think he felt that his career was over completely, and I think I was able to prove to him that that wasn't necessarily the case.
Today, Bradley's coming back to the prison where his rehabilitation began.
I've travelled this road many times, in prison vans and in normal cars, And I'm looking forward to it. I mean, there's no fear or trepidation from it, but I'm looking forward to seeing the people doing it.
For the first time in 15 years, he's going to meet the man who helped him fight back.
Mr. Duff. Good to see you, mate.
You too. Hey, you're looking good.
I can. I put all this weight on the way.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Cheers, mate.
Okay, man. Remember this, Brad?
Yeah, that was cell over there. Yeah, wasn't it?
I think it was cell number 6. I think that was
cell 6. It was, I believe. It was cell 6. Is somebody in it?
There's nobody in it at the moment, I don't think. But, I'm going to quick look. Remember that?
Brings back memories, isn't it? Brings back memories.
Well, actually, I remember. See, when you first came in as I said to you earlier, I remember. The desk used to be, I remember you said the desk.
The hot plate and that used to be there as well, yeah?
Yeah, so the hot plate was there.
There wasn't a ceiling near that here, and this has all been sealed off, eh?
So, well,
it used to be like a proper landing, yeah?
So you had the stairs along, remember you tripped down the stairs along there as well?
That's right, eh? Do you know what I mean? It does bring back, initially I thought I wouldn't be so responsive to the emotions that I'm moving in, but Ken, being locked up, it's no fun, mate, is it? For anybody, it's no fun being locked up 23 hours a day, or even behind the door, no liberties, no family, no contact, no good for anybody. Just looks the same, Mr. Duff, do you know that?
You've got the multi-gym there.
Same multi-gym as.
Used to do a wee bit of bag work and stuff over there, remember?
I remember we used to put a few bags in that up here and stuff.
There's the hook still there.
There's a hook still up there, aye. Now that takes me back. You still get used, is it?
That's it, yep.
The last time Ian had seen Bradley before prison was 10 years earlier, when Bradley had been the mascot for the Scottish amateur boxing team that Ian captained.
I thought, I recognised that name, and I thought, it absolutely can't be the same guy. So I came along to the cell, opened the door, looked at him and went, oh, for goodness sake, Brad, what are you doing here?
Exactly.
And if you remember, you were actually shadowboxing at the time, and you looked at me, and
exactly.
it was just sort of that, oh no. God, no, you know.
That's true, I remember that. I was shadowboxing that. I think I had a wee bit of problems and stuff like that, but it was a guiding light for me to be able to train again and to have somebody focus on and know the nonsense that was going on, because let's face it, endemically within a hall back in that time, you know, it was like a fucking monkey house, wasn't it? But being in prison, you've been denied your family contact, denied your... I loved my mum and my nephews, my brother and my friends and stuff, and to be taken away from them, it's not a good experience. I mean, I understand that some people out there, prison is viewed as an occupational hazard, and it doesn't have to be like that. You know, there's other things that you can do, especially in this day and age.
Bradley started to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
There's only one rule when you're in a place like this, to get back out, that's it.
He was moved to an open prison and allowed out on day release to fight in the Scottish Western District Championships.
So on the Monday, the prison, they took me on a prison bus, up to a competition in Glasgow. And I boxed in the Western District. I knocked the guy out in the first round.
Bradley was back.
And then I get a phone call to the prison on the Sunday saying, could I box for Scotland against Italy? Despite
still being kept at Her Majesty's pleasure, he was about to represent his country.
So again, I'm put in a prison van, taken up to Glasgow. I beat the guy as well, I beat the Italian champion on the Tuesday.
3 days later, he was back for the Western District final.
And the Friday again, same routine again, back up in the prison van, went out on the Friday, and I won the Western District Championships, which I believe I'm the only person that will win the East and Western District Championship. But in 1 week, I boxed for Scotland, beat the Italian champion, knocked the guy out on the Monday, beat the Italian champion on the Tuesday, and then won the Western Districts on the Friday.
When Bradley was released from prison, he went from strength to strength.
Some 12 weeks later, after being released, I fought in the semi-finals of the British and beat the last year's British champion. Then, some 2 weeks later, I was away to Italy to box against Italy, then away to Turkey to the championships and away to Canada, so things were sort of a wee whirlwind.
Bradley was at the top of the amateur game and decided that now was the time to put his troubled past behind him, leave Edinburgh and become a pro. He travelled to Miami to meet legendary boxing trainer Angelo Dundee, the man behind some of the world's greatest boxers, including Muhammad Ali.
There was a Cuban guy at the same time as me in it, and he was in the ring shadowboxing. And the Cuban guy had literally just swam from Cuba to come, to Miami. And there was a delegate from Miami there with him, the Cuban delegate there, and they brought him to the gym because he was an ex-Cuban boxer. And and Angelo Dundee's sitting, and I'm wrapping my hands one day with my pal Kenny, and Angelo Dundee's sitting at the ringside watching the guy shadowboxing and doing a bit Bagwork, and Angelo Dundee runs over and goes, yeah, this kid's got it. We can make a lot of money from him. And to me, that's what I've said about boxing. The people that run this game and perpetrate it, it's for money. Not the amateurs. Amateurs is great, but the professional game, it's about money. This guy's just fucking swamped in Miami, and he's sitting going, we can make a lot of money for this kid. So anyway, I found a great Angelo Dundee. He didn't match up to be the man that I thought he would be anyway.
Dundee's attitude illustrated to Bradley that pro boxing was run by shady characters who were only in it for the money, an attitude that reminded him of the gangster past he was trying to escape. Disillusioned by Dundee's approach, he headed north to New York City, where he made a big impression on two locals. So
we were doing road work, and at night time we used to go over to Central Park. We lived out in Harlem, and we were in there doing road work. So Kenny's down there with the stopwatch stuff. I'm just lumbering up to do doing a series of sprints, and because we trained in Gleason's gym in New York. And next one I hear is, give me your fucking money, man, give me your money. And I was like, what's that? Next one, it's two guys appeared from a bush with a big blade, big knife and stuff, and all one's at the side. Going, give me your fucking money, man, I'm going to cut you, I'm going to cut you. And I'm like lumbering up and stuff and going, guys, come on, you're picking on the wrong guy here. And they're like, give me your fucking money, man. I'm obviously a drug addict. I was like, mate, I says, here, I've got money here. Bash, bash. Sparkled two of them. Kenny's came running doing chasing the other one. So I eventually called the guy back. I went, mate, come and get your 2 minutes. Of course, they're getting up like drunk men, falling about. I mean, it's no big feet knocking at two junkies, is it? But it was quite funny.
Next stop was LA, where he turned pro. He had 10 fights with 9 wins, 7 knockouts and 1 defeat. It was the end of Bradley's pro career. He was disgusted by the greed and exploitation within the sport.
I was pissed off with the game, you know. The thing about professional boxing is, you know, it's down to you as an individual, and all power to anybody that makes it, because it's really them, the managers and promoters, they do very well to subsidise you financially, or, you know, travel-wise, emotionally as well. So it's a lot of strain on a young fighter. It's not a game to be on, you better stick it to football, yeah?
But he couldn't completely give up on the sport that helped save him. Coming up, I'll get in the ring with Bradley.
I'm fit, mate, I believe it.
And I'll get him into trouble with his mum.
I mean, I was totally amazed watching that and listening to Bradley.
Bradley Welsh crammed more into his first 25 years than most people would in a lifetime. From boxer to hooligan, to gangster, to convict, and back again. Throughout everything he'd done, there was one person he had tried to protect, his mum. And when she became ill, Bradley re-evaluated his priorities.
When my mum got quite sick, yeah, she got quite ill, so it was, you know, she had spondylitis in her lower spine, so she needed quite a bit of care and stuff, and I've been her carer since then. And so the years, the sort of just roll into each year, don't they? And I was happy. I mean, I was happy, but I wasn't doing anything. I was living in denial of myself, because I was hiding from myself. I didn't want to go out and do anything. I could have went out and done clubs, or I could have went and done a promotion or anything. I got offered jobs for advertising agencies and stuff like that. I didn't want to do it. I was happy living in my wee cocoon, reading books and studying things, and just happy looking after my mum. And then what happens, my mum got, she got cancer, yeah, which was quite a big blow for us, and that's been a few years now, and she's on the way to recovery with a big time, yeah. She had a 6-month clear and stuff like that, but that was a big shock. My mum was the closest person in the world to me.
Although he's left his criminal career behind, it wasn't until she saw my programme about his hooligan past that she started to fully understand the extent of her son's colourful history.
I mean, I was totally amazed watching that and listening to Bradley. You know, where the hell were we when all this was?
We were working.
But believe me, they had it well, and he's, you know, and he knows that.
Now it's Bradley's devotion to his family that has helped him leave his past behind.
So suffice it to say, yes, I'm a little mummy's boy, yeah, and I always will be, yeah, always will be. I'm a family guy, that's what I'm about. It's for family. What else? All the money in the world, or the big cars, or the houses, all for what? You can't buy what's inside here, or what you have with your people.
Bradley's transformation doesn't end with caring for his mum. Today, he's a respected figure in the community. Disillusioned with the world of professional boxing, he opened a gym in a tough part of Edinburgh, offering the facilities and his knowledge to local kids on a strictly amateur basis.
How did this gym come about then?
Well, just obviously having a boxing background myself, yeah, I had 30 years experience in boxing, and I just thought, you know, the boxing gym, university has always been somewhere that people sort of, you know, gather and congregate, and I've just seen my lifetime experience after coming through that criminal stuff. You know, if you train, yeah, you're in touch with yourself, yeah, it's physically, you know, your mind focuses, yeah. I just think it's a great way to touch people. I've been here for 2 and a bit years now, and we do like 300 people through the door every week, yeah. So it's demanding. I mean, that's 300 people. It's like being a social worker, yeah. People come in, they've got their own problems, but I just believe that when they train, you know, you get rid of that part. It's a great way. Physical activity is the best. Any sport, doesn't matter whether it's boxing, judo, karate, whatever. Any kind of physical activity is going to touch somebody.
Now, physical activity is not one of my strong points, but Bradley and the crew insisted. It was time for me to put the gloves on and have a little go myself.
Get that left foot forward, I don't know what you look like a shot. No, so fist. Take your time, tell that left hand coming out. In the middle, it's just a deltoid, it's an easy jab. Good, fucking fantastic. Watch this, so boom and pull back. Good, go, good, and again, good. You fucking Danny boy's done this before, mate. Double.
This was hardly what I spent my days off doing, and I was starting to wish I smoked a bit less.
Look at the spots. Go. My baby, you never looked at the spot.
He's certainly a tough taskmaster. I can see that he still has a glint of a fighter in his eye, and now he channels that fighting spirit into helping others in his hometown.
Good. Right, lift up. Good. Right, too low. Who you fighting? It's fucking, look. West Ham Millwall. Look, fucking what's happening? Up here, mate. Look, up. Back, boom. Look. Bingo!
Needless to say, Ricky Hatton won't be having any sleepless nights.
I'm so unfit, mate. It's unbelievable. I need to get up here, mate, I tell you. You know what I mean?
I'd probably struggle against Ricky Martin.
That's not sparring, that's padlock. Tell you what, he's got a lot of potential. If the acting game didn't work out, he can certainly come up here.
Good boy.
All right?
Good boy.
Good man.
At a very young age, Bradley had power, money and notoriety. But ultimately, that wasn't important to him. Now, after paying the price for his criminal past with 3 years of his freedom, he's come to realise what is important.
Never let anybody get him down, and I'm like that as well. You can only go so far down, and there's only one place to go, boy, and that's up.
Back up again, yeah.
And it's not even a case of if at first you don't succeed. There was never any question in our minds. He would come home and he would carry on. And he did, and that is the proudest moment of our life.
It's not how you start, it's how you finish. Everybody gets knocked down. Everybody gets knocked down. How quick are you gonna get up?
People that are criminals and seek to gain financially. To buy what? Can you buy your family? Can you buy your friends? When you lose your money, you lose nothing. When you lose your health, you lose something. When you lose your character, you lose everything. And that's something that we've got in abundance.
Tomorrow at 10, Chris Ryan's in Poland in Elite World Cops. After the ads tonight, though, a molecular mistake makes children of the crew in Star Trek: The Next Generation.